Fox News alert: as the shutdown stretches into a second week, Democrats prepare to introduce spending bills to reopen the government when they take control of the House this Thursday.
Good to see you. You're going to be busy
Thank you.
tonight with this New Year's Eve celebration.
Yeah.
And Hugo, what a pleasure having you here.
It's been a great pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Congratulations on the new issue.
Thank you.
Yes.
I need one.
Yeah, and give us
I've got copies.
10 seconds for New Year's wisdom. Go. Two, the Republicans had the ability to start
This issue because it happened in the midst of an
appeal to her most progressive wing.
Yeah, I think
4 letters.
you do have to give him credit for staying in Washington. To your point, I agree with you, Rachel, but continue to watch the show.
I just want to bring up some of the details from Chad funding, $1.3 billion in border funding. And there's actually been a tit for tat the previous passage of it, that it will constitute wall money. And then the Democrats are saying, no, it's border security. It's not for a wall. So that gets to my point.
And you talked about the 4-letter word wall.
Well, I was going to say 3, not letter word, but I was going to say 3 words, border wall funding. So I'm not, you know, I wanted to correct that. So I can see the headlines, but go ahead, Molly. And that the one New Year's resolution, the biggest New Year's resolution that the poll respondent said was bipartisanship and working together when it comes to Washington. That was 29% of people in the poll. So my interpretation of that is all y'all down in Washington stink.
Yeah, people
feel like I could ask you kind of the same questions I could have asked you 6 months ago.
Right.
You know, how close are we to an end?
Million in May. The American taxpayers want results, or they want to see this over.
And investigations to ever run that way. You know, that should never be the goal of an investigation.
No.
Well, I would say this. I'm one of the
been particularly successful in getting this ultimatum, getting an end to this investigation simply by calling for it. Of course, Mueller working on his own timeline.
absolutely going to be their tactics. The senior Democrats don't want to get themselves and get their party into an
more savvy. I mean, can they pull off this sort of dirty political trick of trying
Up, you're right. I think a lot of Americans will have some understanding of what the politics behind all of that could be. Coming up, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. You know, she's fairly popular in Massachusetts. Her video there was, you know, really classic Elizabeth Warren. She's talked about, you know, the little guy and the big banks and the institutions and going after the
generations into the 18th century.
And retiring Democrats have been pointing out that when Democrats start talking
America, and they've spent the last year resisting Trump and not trying to figure out how they lost it in 2006.
Because
or
we
the
saw
racial politics,
we
like
saw
Francis O'Rourke pretending like he's
His comments incite fear. You know what incites fear? Seeing this tragic death because of illegal immigration. But when you see an instance...
Final word to you on this.
I mean, this has to end. And what's surprising to me is, again,
Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats returned, which, of course, we're waiting on Thursday to see things go forward. It looks like at this point in time, there's some paperwork. Potentially, we'll see if this fiscal funding actually comes through and if there can an agreement be made. But the big question is, when we talk about gamesmanship, right? You brought up gamesmanship as to who wins or who loses as we go forward in the long-term perspective. Will anyone remember this the closer we get to 2020? And is the question now, as Democrats are about to step in and potentially they have some information they'll be putting out, if they don't move forward, will it then become the Democratic game to lose?
You, Hugo, are the Republicans beating a dead horse here? Should they just let it go? Or is there some value in figuring out what happened here?
There's absolute value in figuring out what happened.
It doesn't just dissipate because someone's out of the public eye, especially when we're looking at Hillary Clinton, and Lindsey Graham has gone on the offensive, particularly from the Brett Kavanaugh hearings and to now.
Dagan, I mean, that's something that we think is
The FBI counterintelligence investigation into the Trump campaign, which started